The night Draven Blackthorn found his mate, the whole pack held its breath. For 300 years, no alpha of Blackthorn had waited as long as Draven had for the moon goddess to reveal his match. He was strong, proud, and used to being first in everything. So when the bond snapped into place at the gathering moon and pulled his gaze across the crowded courtyard, he expected to see a warrior, a fighter, someone who matched his power. Instead, he saw Illyra Voss. She was small, quiet, and dressed in a plain gray cloak that marked her as an Omega, the lowest rank in pack life. Her wolf was weak, barely able to shift without shaking. She had no title, no strength, and no place among the pack's proud fighters. Draven's face fell in front of everyone. He did not smile. He did not reach for her hand, as tradition demanded. He simply turned and walked away, leaving Illyra standing alone under the moonlight, while the pack whispered around her. That single moment shaped the next 2 years of her life. Illyra was not banished. Draven was too proud to break tradition completely, so he let her stay in the pack, technically his mate, technically under his protection. But he never spoke her name with warmth. He never let the mate bond open fully between them, the sacred connection that was supposed to let two wolves share strength, feel each other's pain, and grow closer with time. He kept that door locked, and so it stayed cold and empty between them. Instead, Draven kept Selene close. Selene was a skilled warrior, sharp-tongued and beautiful, someone the pack respected. She was not his mate, but she filled the space beside him at pack meetings, at feasts, at council fires, the space that should have belonged to Illyra. Illyra never complained. She moved quietly through pack life, helping in the healing tents, tending the training grounds, doing whatever small work no one else wanted. She told herself that maybe, someday, Draven would look at her differently. She held on to that hope the way a person holds onto a candle in a storm, cupping it carefully so the wind would not blow it out. But the wind kept blowing. One evening, word came that a rival pack, the Ashgrave Wolves, had crossed the northern border. Draven gathered his warriors immediately, his voice sharp with command, his eyes glowing the deep red of an alpha preparing for battle. Illyra, watching from the edge of the training grounds, felt fear twist in her stomach. Not for herself, for him. She was not supposed to fight. Omegas rarely did. But something in her would not let her sit safely inside the pack house while danger came close to the man the moon goddess had chosen for her, even if he had never chosen her back. She followed the warriors at a distance, staying hidden, telling herself she only wanted to watch, to be near, in case healers were needed. She told herself many things that night, most of them not true. The battle at the border was brutal. Ashgrave Wolves outnumbered Blackthorn's front line, and for a moment, chaos swallowed the clearing. Draven fought at the center, strong and fast, but even alphas have blind spots. A rival wolf broke through the line behind him, blade raised, aimed straight for the gap in his armor, near his heart. Illyra did not think. She ran. She reached him half a second before the blade did, throwing her body between Draven and the strike. Pain exploded through her side, sharp and burning, stealing the breath from her lungs. She fell to the ground, her vision swimming, the sounds of battle fading into a dull roar around her. Draven spun at the sound of her cry. For one heartbeat, shock froze him in place. His mate, his weak, quiet, overlooked mate, lay bleeding at his feet, having taken a blow meant for him. But the battle was not over. Ashgrave Wolves pressed forward again, and Draven, trained for decades to put the pack first, turned back to the fight. He shouted for a healer to come for Illyra, then threw himself back into battle, telling himself she would be fine. She had to be fine. He could not think about it now. The truth was crueler than that. Somewhere beneath his pride, a small, ugly part of him still saw her as less important. An Omega's wound, he told himself, without meaning to, could not be as serious as the battle in front of him. By the time the fighting ended and Ashgrave retreated, precious time had slipped away. Illyra had been moved to the healing tents, but no one had told Draven how deep her wound truly was. He returned to the pack house exhausted, covered in blood that was not his own, and let Selene fuss over his minor cuts, praising his bravery, keeping his attention on herself. Hours passed before anyone thought to update him properly. When Draven finally walked into the healing tent, what he saw stopped his heart. Illyra lay pale and still on the cot, her skin nearly translucent, her breathing shallow and uneven. The wound at her side had been deep, deeper than anyone first realized, and infection had begun to creep through her body. The healers spoke in low, worried voices, saying words like fading and not much time. The mate bond. If he had opened it earlier, if he had let his strength flow into her the moment she was hurt, her body might have healed faster, might have fought off the worst of it. That was what the bond was for. That was the gift the moon goddess had given them both, and he had left it locked away out of pride and disappointment, refusing a connection he never wanted. Now it might be too late. Illyra, he said, his voice cracking in a way it never had before. He knelt beside her cot and took her hand, feeling how cold her fingers were. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then finding his face. A faint, sad smile touched her lips. "You came," she whispered. "I should have come sooner," he said. "I should have opened the bond the moment you were hurt. I'm sorry." "It's all right," she murmured, though her voice shook with pain. "I always knew I wasn't the mate you wanted. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. I'm sorry I couldn't be enough for you." Her words struck him harder than any blade could have. Here she was, dying, and still apologizing to him, still believing the fault was her own weakness rather than his neglect. "Don't," he said, gripping her hand tighter. "Don't say that. None of this is your fault." But her eyes were already drifting closed again, her breathing growing fainter, and panic rose in his chest for the first time in his long life as Alpha. Word spread through the pack quickly. Warriors and healers alike gathered near the tent, murmuring, worried, waiting. Even Selene came, though she stayed near the back, her face carefully arranged into concern that did not quite reach her eyes. Then the air changed. A silver light spilled through the trees surrounding the healing tent, soft at first, then growing brighter, until it seemed the moon itself had descended into the pack's sacred grove nearby. Every wolf in the clearing froze. Even the wind seemed to hold still. The moon goddess Elunara stepped from the light. She was tall and radiant, her form shifting between mist and solid shape, her eyes ancient and endless. The pack fell to their knees instinctively, awe and fear mixing in every face. Draven rose slowly from Illyra's side, his heart pounding. "Alpha Draven Blackthorn," the goddess said, her voice carrying through the clearing like a bell. "I gave you a gift 2 years ago. A mate, chosen by fate, meant to strengthen you, to complete the bond that makes an alpha whole. And what have you done with that gift?" Draven opened his mouth, but no excuse came. There was nothing he could say that would not sound hollow. "You looked at her and saw only what she lacked," Elunara continued. "You never saw her heart, her loyalty, or her strength of spirit, which today saved your life at the cost of her own. You left the bond closed out of pride. You let her suffer in silence for 2 years, and tonight you let her nearly die because you were too slow to value her." "Please," Draven said, his voice breaking. "Punish me if you must, but save her. Take anything from me, just save her life." The goddess turned her gaze toward him, and for a long moment, silence stretched across the clearing. "You asked me to save her," Elunara said, "but you never gave her the one thing that might have saved her sooner. Your bond. Your strength, your care. A mate bond is not a burden, Draven Blackthorn. It is a gift, and gifts left to rot serve no one." She raised a hand, and silver light wrapped around Draven's body. He felt something deep inside him, something that had always been there since his first shift as a young wolf, begin to pull loose, like roots torn from soil. "I gave you the power of an alpha," the goddess said, "the strength, the speed, the healing, the bond to your pack. Tonight, I take it back." Draven gasped, as the light around him flared, then sank into his skin. He felt his wolf, the second half of himself that had always lived just beneath the surface, grow distant, then silent, then gone entirely. His eyes, which had glowed alpha red his whole life, dimmed to ordinary human brown. His knees buckled, and he collapsed to the ground, powerless, human, and alone in a way he had never known before. Gasps rippled through the crowd. An alpha stripped of his wolf was almost unheard of, a punishment reserved for the gravest betrayals. But the goddess was not finished. She turned toward Alira, and her expression softened into something gentle and warm. She knelt beside the cot and placed a glowing hand over the wound at Alira's side. Warm light spread through her body, and slowly, color returned to her cheeks. Her breathing steadied, her eyes opened, clear and calm, meeting the goddess's gaze with quiet wonder. "Alira Voss," Elunara said softly, "you have carried a burden longer than you know. Years ago, someone jealous of the strength you were born with placed a curse upon you, one that suppressed your true power and made you seem weak, so that you would be overlooked and underestimated. Tonight, your courage broke that curse from the inside, when you gave yourself for someone who had not yet earned that sacrifice." Alira stared, stunned, as warmth spread through her chest, through her limbs, a feeling like a door opening after years of being sealed shut. Her wolf, which had always felt small and faint, suddenly stretched inside her, strong and sure for the first time in her life. "You are not weak," the goddess said. "You never were, and a pack led by someone with a heart like yours will thrive." Turning to the gathered wolves, Elunara raised her voice so all could hear. "Blackthorn Pack, hear me. Your alpha discarded the gift I gave him. Tonight, that gift becomes something greater. I name Alira Voss the new alpha of this pack, chosen not only by fate, but by her own courage and heart." A ripple moved through the crowd, and one by one, the warriors and pack members knelt before Alira, their instincts recognizing the shift in power immediately, the way wolves always sense a true leader. Celine, near the back, stood frozen, her secret cruelty and manipulation suddenly laid bare in the goddess's final words to the pack, a warning that those who nurture division for their own gain will not be welcome much longer in Blackthorn lands. Within days, she would leave the territory, unable to face a pack that no longer trusted her. Alira sat up slowly, her body whole and strong, her mind still catching up to everything that had happened. She looked at Draven, who knelt now not from respect, but from the simple fact that his legs, no longer enhanced by alpha strength, could barely hold him. His eyes, ordinary and human, were filled with something she had never seen in them before. Real sorrow, real regret. "Alira," he said quietly, "I am so sorry. For every day I made you feel like you didn't matter. You saved my life, and I couldn't even give you the bond that might have saved yours in return." She looked at him for a long moment, feeling the weight of 2 years of loneliness, of quiet hope, of small hurts that had piled up one on top of another. She thought of every moment she had told herself she wasn't enough, when the truth was that he had simply never tried to see her. "I forgive you," she said finally. And she meant it, because holding on to anger would only poison the strength she had just found. But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to how they were. You had 2 years to open your heart to me, Draven. I won't spend the rest of my life waiting by a door you refuse to open. She rose to her feet, steady and sure, the new weight of leadership already settling naturally onto her shoulders. The pack watched her with a mixture of awe and quiet respect, warriors who had ignored her for years, now seeing her clearly for the first time. "You may stay in these lands as a human, under the pack's protection, if you wish to live peacefully," Alira said to Draven, her voice gentle but firm. "But you will not lead here again. Some gifts, once wasted, are not given a second time." Draven bowed his head, accepting words he knew he deserved, grief and humility settling over him like a heavy cloak. He rose slowly and walked away from the healing tent, no longer an alpha, no longer surrounded by warriors eager for his favor, just a man beginning to understand, far too late, what he had truly lost. Alira stood at the center of the clearing, as the silver light of the moon goddess faded gently back into the night sky, leaving behind a pack that now looked to her with new eyes. She lifted her face to the moon, feeling her wolf settle calmly and powerfully within her, feeling, for the first time in years, that she was exactly where she belonged. Under the full moon, surrounded by a pack that finally saw her worth, Alira Voss began her new life, not as someone's overlooked mate, but as alpha in her own right, strong, respected, and free.